So Jay, how long have you been in France, and what has been kind of like your process so people understand, not what qualifies you as being able to provide answer, because we're not lawyers, by the way, we're just regular people.
Not an accountant.
So this is not legal advice, but how long have you been here and in Paris?
I've been in Paris the last almost 8 years, 7.5 at least, and then I lived in Nice and Paris again before that. So a combined 10 years that I've been in France so far.
Got it. And so you went through the entire process of arriving as a typical American with your U.S. passport, and now you have a French passport.
I do, yeah. I just got my French passport a couple of months ago, put it to use. They didn't stop me at the border. That was good. I was really kind of actually worried. Like I was walking through with this French passport and it says, nationalité française.
Yeah.
It's like, they put it in the machine, no alarms go off and you get through. And so, apparently, officially, I'm very French.
That's awesome. So you went through the entire process.
Yeah.
So if people are like thinking of moving to France, you've just like, hey, I've experienced it all.
I've been through it. Yeah, I've definitely been through it. And I've gone through, I think, the harshest version of it. Like I didn't have anyone that I was married to. I didn't have any family. I didn't have any job when I came here. Like I really did it the hardest way possible, I think, and so in that way I have experienced kind of the worst of it.
All right.
So my experience may not be everyone's experience, but you can be guaranteed that yours is likely to be a little bit easier than mine.
So the first one is from Karen Ewan, and she says, we're a retired couple and we'd love to be able to spend 3 to 6 months in Paris each year. How long is a U.S. citizen allowed to stay in France each year?
Yeah, I think it's 180 days out of every,
which is 6 months,
right? So you're able to cycle through and basically stay for a period of time and leave. But if you wanted to, you could that's without getting any extra visa. That's getting stamped in, walking through. You can get a year-long tourist visa with no real difficulty. I know a lot of people that have done that. Just go to your consulate or go online, look that up. You should be able to apply for it, and you'll be able to come with no job, nothing. It's just an extended visa that lasts for a year.
So you can get a 1-year visa.
Yes, you
and
can.
That's super easy to get.
And you can renew it. And I think it depends on your situation. This is why I always tell people to just get here and get to know people, and you'll find ways through the system, because the French system is not one that is cut and dry. It looks very cut and dry on paper, and then very confusing because all the cut and dryness conflicts with itself at times.
Right.
The reality is it just depends on who you're sitting in front of as far as the bureaucrat that you're talking to. So I would say get here, meet some people, make some friends. You'll navigate your way through it. If you get that 1 year, technically, I believe you're supposed to usually go home to renew it. I do know people that have managed to renew it without doing that. I know others that haven't. So it's not cut and dry like we're saying, but there's a chance you get here and you find a way of staying here and not necessarily having to go back.
Right.
But if you're already thinking about coming and going once or twice a year, you're probably very able to go back and renew it if you need to.
Okay, got it. But so again, this is not legal advice.
I am not a lawyer.
Right, you should consult an immigration lawyer.
I was told I should
all
become one when I was a kid.
Right. Yeah, everything should come with an asterisk. We're not lawyers, right? So basically, someone can come in, stay here for 6 months without a visa.
Yeah.
They can stay in France without a visa, but if they want to stay a little bit longer, the application process.
And it's not even that you're without a visa. The stamp you get in your passport is technically a visa. You walk up, they check you out and let you through. So that counts, right?
And that's for Americans, right?
That's for Americans.
Is this different for Australians?
That's a great question.
You don't know. Okay, great. So if you're Australian, sorry, we don't know.
I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not Australian. We're going to get a nice long list by the end of this of things I am not.
What kind of country? Obviously, can you go to a Schengen country that would constitute you leaving France?
No. So you have to leave the Schengen zone, I believe, entirely.
You could go to London.
Yeah. So because it's a Schengen visa. Now you can go to London, but you'd have to stay in London for 6 months because it's 180 days out of the year, and I believe that you can't just go out and it resets when you come back.
Got it.
And you also become a tax resident. Well, you wouldn't become a tax resident on a tourist visa, I don't think, but living outside of the country long enough can start messing with your taxes, so you want to look into that.
Got it. So that's good to know. Once again, you should consult a professional, but at least that's that. So another question.
Also to clarify, like if you were to stay here for 3 months and leave for a week, you could come back in again. And people generally, again, it's not that so cut and dry that people are going to kick you out for doing it. I know people that have stayed here without an official visa for a very long time and gotten away with it.
Right.
But again, just like to make sure that you're careful.
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing you want to do is get in trouble, so it's always better to for the process. And I'm going to tell you the French process is, I went through it for Colleen, and I'm French. I was born and raised here, and I would read the website. And I think that many times I was more confused at the end of reading multiple pages than I was when I started.
Yeah.
It just complicated is the understatement. It's complex. There's a French thing, it says, pourquoi faire simple quand on peut faire compliqué? Which means, why make it simple when you can make it complicated, is the French motto. So the bureaucracy is at a level that is unique.
A lot of it exists to support itself.
Say again?
A lot of it exists to support itself.
Yes.
A lot of the French bureaucracy just exists to protect the French bureaucracy or to perpetuate it into the future. So,
right. Yeah. So that's a fair way to put it.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah. Good luck. So I have another question now from Heidi Ullman. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm sorry, Heidi. But she says, for non-retired folks, is it easy for outside citizens of France to obtain work? Or what is the process like? Is it similar than the U.S.? Example, I am a nurse. I would like to be able to work in France as a nurse.
I mean, it's tricky, especially in medicine. Like, not all medical professions translate over. I worked on a hospital ship for a number of years with medical professionals from all over the world. That's tricky. You're going to have to... Do we want to wait for that beeping to stop too? Or are we concerned about it?
No, that's part of the...
That's part of the experience.
That's part of the experience.
It's a really charming part of the experience. So to my knowledge, like working, and everybody would say this that I know, getting a visa to work in the U.S. as a non-U.S. citizen is more difficult than getting one to come to France.
Okay.
The French system, however, is still not easy, and you do need to have, I think the easiest way is probably to have a job in a company that's going to either sponsor you to come over or do like an internal transfer into an office that's here.
Right.
If you have a tech job, if you're like a programmer, those are also easier to get visas for coming over here. There's a lot of demand for tech talent.
Right.
Macron's made it much easier for that, specifically under his government. So those kind of things are easier. But if you're going to come and practice medicine, I mean, even between like the US and the UK or the US and Australia, the titles don't even match up a lot of times. And so,
right. And the certification, I've heard many times that whatever certification you have in the US might not even jive here in France. They may say we don't know that.
Absolutely. And if you're going to work in medicine in France, you're probably going to want to, I mean, you have to speak French as well. So I don't know how good your French is here, but it's not the same. If you go to an international context, let's say you go volunteer on a hospital ship like I did, then you need to speak English. In this circumstance, you would need to speak French to be able to work with your
basics.
French
And so actually, let's talk about that, because I know I've seen your videos and I have seen you going through the process of speaking French. So what level of French do you need to have in order to being able to qualify that?
Well, if you're going to qualify for like a higher level visa, I think or for citizenship, it's B1.
So B1. What does that mean?
B1 is conversational. It's like a level of it's a decent level of fluency where you can talk about where you've been, where you're going, what time you're meeting somebody.
Right.
You can read and write at a decent level.
We're not talking about philosophical conversation.
No, so you're
just
like,
talking about basic.
How do I catch the bus and where's the croissant? No, I ate a croissant 2 days ago. You can do that kind of thing. The cat is in the tree. Exactly, the cat is in the tree, and the fireman is not happy. Those kinds of things are good. I'm probably about C1, which is fluent, and so that's 2 levels above. It's confusing because the European system starts at A at the bottom and C at the top. So A1 is very beginner. Then you've got A2, B1, B2, C1, C2.
That's the French just being there.
Right, just trying to keep things simple, you know. And everything's inverted. If you learn anything when you learn French, you learn that everything, the syllables, the emphasis, the way the words are phrased.
In English, you put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
That's exactly right.
That's right. That's
exactly
the
right.
French way. All right, good. So thank you. I mean, we've covered that. All right. So here's another question from Doreen. I'm not going to say your last name. Let me try it. Giordano Merit. All right. Can you do a 6 month in France, 6 month in the US? What kind of visa is needed? Can you apply for dual citizenship? So many questions.
That's a lot of questions. You can do 6 months on, 6 months off, like we said earlier. You're just, if you get stamped
That's
into
the
country,
easiest way, actually.
It's the easiest way to do it. If you have the money to do that.
Is it 5 months and 29 days, or just like if you do 6 months in 1 day, now you're in trouble?
I don't think they're going to care.
I don't think
generally they and honestly, with my titre séjour, like back when I had my long stay visa,
right,
the only people that asked to see it were the Dutch. like when flying through Schiphol. Like the French have looked at it once or twice, but I stopped handing it over. And
So
I'd
you
give
can
my
smoke
American
weed
passport.
in a coffee shop, but like the visa, you have to have the
They'd
right
want
thing.
to make sure you're coming in to
Okay,
smoke
cool.
that weed legally.
You got to be strict in some ways
Absolutely.
and loose in
Yeah,
other ways.
100%.
Okay.
But as far as dual citizenship, you cannot apply for dual citizenship doing that. You have to stay in France for 5 years straight, pay taxes that entire time, and then apply, and then still stay for another good year and a half after that while they process it. So in reality, you need to be able to stay here for 7 years solid as a resident, paying your taxes. Don't get caught breaking any laws like smoking weed here.
Yeah,
and
don't.
Then
Which, by the way, is a point, right? Because it's people come from Europe and they're looking
or
at...
in the States. Most of the States, it's legal, right? So like a lot of Americans...
So you could come here and thinking, hey, I smelled it in the street. It's cool. It's not. It's really not.
Well, and again, it's that thing. It's illegal, but like people do it. So I think it's that you'll smell it when you're walking around Paris and certain parts of the city,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
like, kids will be smoking it on the streets. The cops. That goes back to like everything. The law is applied selectively,
Right.
and so you don't take any unnecessary risks, especially if you're going for citizenship. I took as few risks as possible. I did get a ticket on my bike once. That's about it. And
Yeah, I
and
knew
they
you were a
didn't care.
lawbreaker. The moment I saw you, I was like, this guy. No, but
Living high and
one of the
fast.
things you said about like staying here 5 years and another year and a half and everything, what I've learned in France is overnight takes about 10 to 15 years.
Yes, 100%.
It's about right. Give or take a decade, right?
Yeah,
It's,
I was thinking about that on the way here though today. I was thinking like if I ever moved to somewhere like Germany, I would struggle because now I break the rules all the time.
and they don't break rules.
Because everybody breaks rules here. We're always jaywalking. You're like running red lights on your bike. You're
Right.
doing all kinds of stuff. And in Germany, like the first time I went to Germany, I remember that the lights were still red to go. There were no cars, and I went to cross the street, and
You got
I was the
yelled at.
only one, and everybody was like glaring at me, and
Yeah.
I would struggle to fit
It's
in.
very much Anglo-Saxon. Anglo-Saxons follow the rules, and the French are not Anglo-Saxon.
They
We're
are not.
Latin roots, and the rules are definitely for other people.
It's very
Yeah,
true.
the queue. Right?
Yeah.
By the way, there's a
Yeah.
queue. You get the English. They all wait in line, and the French are like, no.
They like crab walk their way in wherever they can. Yeah.
Exactly. They will. All right. So that's awesome. Great. That's a good one. So Amy Lewis is asking. It's not 100% related to immigration, but I think you're the right person to answer that. We move in 10 days. So my biggest question is how you navigated finding an expat community, if you have, and also finding French social communities to join, i.e., hobbies, activities, groups, etc.
Yeah, I think the French are not as chronically online as the Anglo world is. That's changing. So it's harder to find stuff online when it comes to hobbies and so forth that you can. And Paris, I feel like in New York or London, you walk around and all the fun stuff hits you in the face. And
Right.
in Paris, you have to look for it a little more. So I think the first thing is just get here and wander around and see what you find. When it comes to Anglo community, that's also something that's going to open up a lot of opportunities in that arena.
Yeah.
And I would definitely, well, it depends on if you have kids. I think you're going to end up meeting a lot of people through school, through parents. Like there's a lot of community around there.
Right.
If you don't, then I would just start by going to things that are interesting to you. If you are a coffee drinker, then go to one of the fun hipster coffee shops. Find one that like.
Do you know a couple of them?
I know a lot of them. Yeah.
By the way, if you're looking for a coffee shop, I would say just watch Jay Swanson's channel because you'll find all the
Thank you.
great spot.
I'm lightly addicted. So that is a good way to meet people that, like, if you go to the French bistro kind of scene, generally I would say you're going to meet more tourists or locals. You might meet locals. And showing up regularly is really important. I just made a little video about this recently where my thing with French friends is that it takes a good 6 months of investment before they even really register that you exist fully.
That's true.
They might enjoy you. They might like welcome you. They'll be very warm and friendly, but they won't start inviting you until you've shown up consistently for a long time.
Yeah.
So it takes a real investment. So what I would say when it comes to making friends is do make English speaking friends first. There's no shame in that. They're going to understand you better. They're going to emotionally relate to you better. They're going through stuff that the French don't. The French don't have to go to the prefecture to get their titre séjour. The French don't have to set everything up for the first time with the bank account and all this other stuff. So a lot of the nightmares you're facing, they won't really relate to you anyways.
Right.
So get your emotional support from some English-speaking friends, however you meet them, and then after you've got that established and you feel pretty safe and confident and like ready to go, then I would say really put yourself out there to consistently show up as like a regular in a bar or a bistro, a coffee shop, whatever. And over time, that exposure is going to settle in. Because the other thing, if you're moving to Paris specifically, like in France, the rest of France, it's much easier because people are more open, and
That's true.
they've never seen an English speaking person before. Like that's not entirely true, but like
Right.
if you go to the countryside, you go to a smaller town, they're going to be very interested in you.
Yeah.
In Paris,
You're a novelty.
Yeah, exactly. You're a novelty there. In Paris, you're just another American in Paris. You know, they've seen 20 of you today, and they're over it. So it's a very long-term, short-term thing where they're going to assume you're a tourist. Maybe you're not sticking around.
Right.
So you have to demonstrate, no, I'm here, and I'm worth investing in.
Right.
Before anybody's really going to connect to you. And I think that's the same as any big city that you might end up
That's
living
true.
in.
And what I'll add to that is, Paris is a different beast. Like a lot of people in France will tell you, Paris is not France.
Yeah.
And France is not Paris. And there's definitely a completely different vibe when you get out of Paris.
100%.
And the best way to understand that as an American is New York is not America and America is not New York.
Yep.
And the Parisians have the same complex as New Yorkers.
Yep.
They live in the center of the universe and everything is better in Paris, according to them.
Yep.
And the rest of France disagree wholeheartedly with them, and they don't particularly like Parisians.
Yep.
When you hear
Parisians
about
don't particularly like Parisians.
Yeah, Parisians. But it's like for Parisians. It's like I said, the Parisians don't hate America; they hate everybody, including the provincial people. So that's the
Including
truth.
themselves.
So you'll have a different experience if you want to live in Paris versus if you want to live in Bordeaux or Lyon or in Nice or in another metropolis in France. It's a totally different vibe.
And making friends at different stages of life is different. And if you're like the French, I think this is true. This is probably a little bit more universally true than I give it credit. But I do say that, like, if you're coming from the States, Americans in particular are minglers. Like, you're sitting at a table, you're going to talk to somebody next to you. You're going to chat with somebody in line. A lot of opportunities. It may not actually turn into a friendship, but there's a lot of opportunities to check people out, to chat. Parisians especially do not do that.
No.
You talk to somebody in line at the bakery, they're going to look at you suspiciously. You talk to like somebody that you think is attractive, they're going to like think you're trying to ask for money or something.
Right.
Like there's their walls up, because the French make friends when they're kids, when they're at university, and then at work. Those are like the times that they're open to making new friend groups, generally speaking. And outside of that, it's pretty hard. Like when they go to the bar, they go and they sit together, they have drinks, they get more drinks, they sit there. They don't really get up and meet anybody else.
Yeah, no, we got this in our small. We don't live in Paris. We're near Chantilly, so it's about 30 minutes north of Paris. And it's tough for Colleen because she's like very friendly. She talks to people. Hi, what's your name? And people are like, what do you need to know my name for?
Yeah, exactly. Are you writing this down?
Or are you the gendarme?
Like,
what is this? And I'm like, no, I'm just friendly. And Colleen wanted to bake a pie and go to neighbors, and I'm like, nah, we don't do that.
Yeah. I get weird. It's funny because I remember I did do this again recently just because I helped a neighbor move in. They couldn't figure out their electricity and stuff. And so I did end up giving them a welcome bottle of wine. Like, hey, like, welcome to the neighborhood. But that's generally pretty weird. Like, if you were to bake cookies and take them to the new neighbors, they would not know what to do with that. And so there are a lot of little cultural differences like that do make it harder. But again, if you can just do the slow burn, like the French are definitely curious. They do want to meet people. And I think that there's an envy of our ability for small talk as Anglos.
That's true.
And I know that because a lot of my French friends.
And a lot of French people were like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "No, dude, we do small talk better than anyone.
It's true.
We can chat with people and have fun and then oftentimes actually when my family would come to the States and I'm like, "Do you know that guy?" I'm like, "No, I've never met him in my life."
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought he was coming over for dinner today. And I'm like, no, we just chit-chatted.
Which also explains why a lot of Europeans going to the States get really confused the other way because they think everyone's going to be their friend.
Right.
And then no one will, and they don't. And so there are big mismatches.
I've had that with French people that come and I'm super friendly and they're like, all of a sudden they think like we're like, I don't know, like we should exchange phone numbers and we're best friends forever. I'm like, no, dude, we just had a half an hour, jovial, fun, and everything. Now see you later.
They just starve for emotional contact.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, next. Oh,
let this be a warning to you if you're moving here. Just
yeah. It's just that's the thing. It's like you come here, you're on vacation. It's like, oh my God, I love it and everything. And
living here is very different, for sure.
This is different. And I just say everybody is like, okay, come for 3 months, spend the winter here.
Yeah.
See how you like it after a winter.
Yeah.
Spend like December, January, February, then go home and just reassess. Am I good?
Yeah.
Because if you can do that, if you can do December, January, February in France and still be in love and still say, this is where I want to live, then you're good to go. Then I would explore, but I would say do that. All right. So next question is from Jennifer Arangio. All right. First, she asked a three-part question. So number one, access to healthcare if on a long-term visa and not a citizen. So that's one.
Okay.
Number two, ability to work on a travel visa. I think we've covered that. And then number three, ability to work for your own business that is in a U.S. based business if operating remotely in France.
That is a U.S. based business.
Yeah, U.S. based business. I can answer that, but
Sure.
I'd like to hear your take on that.
I think
So the first one is access to healthcare.
right. So if you're basically if you're here, you'll be taken care of. Like even if you're a tourist and you have an accident or you get sick, get help. Like you're not
Right.
going to go bankrupt over it.
No.
And when the French say that healthcare is expensive, like dental work is a really good example. Anytime that I've talked to friends and they're like, "Ooh, I went there. It was kind of expensive though. Like got a bunch of work done in my mouth, whatever." And I'm like, "How much was it?" And
Like
it's like
$300.
80 euros. And I'm just like, well, are you kidding me? Like that,
Yeah.
I'll go right now.
Here's
I don't even
100.
have any problems. I just pay for, why not? Just for the fun of having my face drilled. So the healthcare system here is very affordable. It is under strain like so much of the world, but
Right.
if you need help, you will get it. And we often say like you should be able to get an ambulance ride for free if you need it. You should be able to get.
I actually
access
have
to a
heard
doctor.
otherwise.
I've heard that's why I said should, because I've heard somebody got paid.
You
had to
should,
pay
but
recently.
I've heard like some people, and then by the way, it was $150, right? 150
Right, so
euros.
it's still not like the $3,000 you would pay in the States, but
Right.
it's a thing like even if it's not free, it'll be affordable. And so I think that I mean, if you can afford to come here and vacation for a long period of time, you can absolutely afford the healthcare.
Right.
The second thing, if you're on like a tourist visa, you're not allowed to get a job here. Absolutely, and even certain like if you're a student, you're allowed to work, but you're only allowed to work part-time. You're not allowed to work full-time. If you come on a particular kind of visa, it may determine what forms of work you're allowed to pick up and what you're allowed to take from that. My visa, I was on a passport talent, so a talent visa, which is about as good as it gets. And that allowed me to do pretty much anything.
So talent is artist, painter,
I'm just
singer.
really good with spoons on noses.
There you go.
Saw it and
I knew that. When I saw you.
But the talent visa now is a little bit more extreme. Where when I got it, I was one of the very first people to get it, and to the point that the border, nobody knew what to do with me when I showed up in the country. They'd never seen it before, and now they do require that you even have a contract with like an agency or a publisher or whatever on this side before they accept it. So there are people that I know that have tried to get it that didn't, just because they didn't quite have the same level of connection to the country. And then to the last question, I mean, working abroad, if you like, I know a lot of people that work remotely while they're here. I would say it's a gray zone.
It's a big gray zone.
So you have to be really careful about it. I would say that again, no systems within France talk to each other, and things are pretty laissez-faire, as we've said already. So, like you,
what is laissez-faire?
Just let it be.
Let it be.
So, like I would say that if you're going to work remotely and come here, like I know a lot of people that have come here on a 1-year tourist visa, figured their rental out, and then worked remotely for their company or someone else's company. I'm not advising you do it. I'm just saying I know a lot of people that have.
Right. So the big thing that you have to take in consideration is where are the decisions being made?
Yeah.
And where is it that you're selling? Where is the transaction taking place?
Yeah.
That's huge. So if the decisions are made in the United States and the transaction happens in the United States, i.e., I'm a consultant.
Yeah.
I talk for an hour and a half to someone, charge $500. I think that falls into the zone. And again, I'm not an attorney, but I'm going to say, okay, this is fine. You could do that. But if you're making decisions here in France and you're having a transaction here, then it's absolutely no. You cannot. That's a red flag. And again, this is the type of stuff you want to get an accountant, a French accountant that's expert in U.S. and the French laws to set you up properly, because this is a zone where you could get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, what's going to happen is they're going to tax you, and they're going to say you owe me money, so they're going to go back and just say you owe me money for everything that has happened before that.
Yeah. So like in my situation, I was legally able to set up a business here in France. I didn't know that when I got here, but I tried and nobody stopped me, and then here we are. So I've been able to open up one here, and I have one in the States, and that keeps like kind of the state side separate and this side separate, and they can work together, but they're completely separate entities. And I would say that's probably, if you work for yourself and you have transatlantic everything. Like you want to be really clear about how you've set and divided those things. You don't want the money to mingle. You want everything to stay completely separate. If you are working just for your own American company, and like you said, like if you're here and you're selling straight to French companies while you're here, yeah, I can imagine that would get really tangled.
That's a big no. That doesn't fly. I'm going to put a link in the description below to some companies that can actually give you professional advice, and so just look for it. Relocation experts and business experts that will tell you, okay, this is how you need to set it up. So just click on the link. All right, last question.
Yeah.
Michelle Burns, what is the maximum time I could live there each year but still be a U.S. citizen? I think we covered that, but it's just the questions that keeps on coming back.
Yeah.
Hopefully I explained that right. We want to live in France the most time we can, but still, but be in the U.S. the rest of the year.
You can't lose your U.S. citizenship, so they won't let you. You have to literally pay a significant sum of money to get rid of your American citizenship. Right. So you'll be paying taxes to the U.S. government for the rest of your life, no matter where you live. The U.S. is one of
the things. Yeah.
2 countries on the planet that does this.
Right.
And if you happen to be a congressperson watching this, please change it.
Please stop.
It's one of the most ridiculous laws that we have. So it complicates your life too, because I have to do my taxes in France first, and then use that to report to the U.S. So I always do my taxes in December.
But you don't pay taxes in the U.S. You tell them that you're paying your taxes here, and you're good, or
Correct.
They're taxing you.
So the thing about that is that you have an exemption up to a certain amount of income. Unfortunately, my company, all the revenue in my company is counted as my income, regardless of whatever I take home. Right. And so once you surpass that amount, then the U.S. government taxes you on whatever is beyond that amount.
Wow.
So you'll always get if you're making less than that, whatever, you're fine. You'll only get taxed in France, and you'll have to declare what you've earned and what you paid to the U.S. So the IRS is always going to want to know what you're paying to the host country you're in. But France has a specific agreement with the U.S., and most countries have their own specific agreements. So the details are different depending on where you're living. So it's not going to be the same outside of France as it would be here.
But Michelle was asking, like, how long can she stay here, the maximum amount of time? And I think that's 6 months, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. You have to. I think it's 6 months and a day that you have to be outside the States to lose. So. But I thought it was about citizenship that she was asking.
No, it's the maximum of time I can live in France each year, but still be a U.S. citizen. So it's 6 months.
But
that should still be. You will always be a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, the question becomes where you're going to end up paying taxes. But if you are on a tourist visa here, you won't pay taxes in France. The only time you're paying taxes in France is if you're working and paying. I mean, if you're working in France and making taxable income. And then even then, if you were here like 3 months out of the year legally working in France, but then spending 9 months out of the year in the U.S., you'd still be a U.S. tax resident, and all that income globally would be taxed in the U.S. So you would want to talk to a tax expert about that specifically for sure. Yeah. But yeah, you're not going to lose your citizenship if you go abroad for any period of time.
Okay, cool. So the last question is it's for you.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone considering an American or an Australian, but let's just talk American, right? An American.
Australians just keep coming up.
Because we have a lot of people from Australia in our, a lot of Australians actually on our channel. So, and they're also considering moving here. Yeah. What would you tell someone that is thinking, I've been to France multiple times and I want to live here? Mm-hmm. What would be the thing that you would tell them? I mean, I tell them, come and spend the winter here, but what would be your advice to someone thinking about it?
Yeah, I would definitely say come for a longer period of time. I would say even give it a full year. If you're in that place where you're thinking about moving here, give yourself that full year. There's no shame in deciding it's not for you in the end. Right. And just go through the whole process. And like you're saying, if you can survive that and you still enjoy it, because the thing about France makes you pay to live here in emotional and stressful ways. Yeah. And that's just a reality of life. Nobody can fully escape it. I took probably the most stressful route to do it. There are people that have much less stressful ways of doing it. Right. As long as you're financially secure, that's another thing I would say. Like, I was not when I moved here. So I would say make sure that you can definitely afford to do it. If you're not 100% certain about it, then don't close off the exits when you come. Right. But then commit and do it and power through it. Know that in the middle of it, when it's really hard, it's still going to be worth it. And then once you get through to the other side, you'll really love living here. And if you get through the other side and you don't love living here, then you've realized that maybe it's not for you.
Yeah, and I'm 100% with you. I just don't think that it's for everybody. And even if you came here and you're like, oh my God, I love France, I love Paris, there's a huge difference between visiting the country and living here day to day.
It's that thing where it's like the same thing. Like I have friends with kids that struggle with this a lot because when they go to the States to visit family, it's always vacation. So their kids have this imagination of the U.S. as always being pizza parties and like, you know, amusement parks, and that's just all they think the U.S. is. And I think a lot of times when you go to a place on vacation, that is, I mean, you're relaxed, you're not working, you're not stressed, you don't have bills to pay, you don't have to deal with the bureaucracy in the same way. So that changes everything. The other thing I would say is do your best to learn French. Not because you have to, like, to live here. There are a lot of people that don't, but your life gets significantly easier the better your French gets.
Right.
The less stressed you are when you're on the phone, having to deal with like some sort of bill that you never knew you had to pay. Somebody calls you and they immediately launch into like, hey, I'm so-and-so from the bank, blah, blah, and you already don't know what they're saying. All those kinds of things get so much easier. So I would say is doing yourself a favor. The better your French can be when you get here. It's a night and day difference between people's experiences living here.
So for people that don't know you, for the 3 people in our channel that don't know you.
3 people.
4, okay. 4 people that don't know you, how they can get a hold of you, or what? I know he has a YouTube YouTube channel. Jay
Watch
Swanson.
me on YouTube, Jay Swanson. There's also, if you're coming just to visit, Paris in My Pocket. Although it's a lot of locals that are using my guide now too. So if you want a guide by locals for locals, then Paris in My Pocket would be great. Otherwise, if you just want to see what life is like behind the scenes of a very non-traditional, very just random dude living in Paris.
American.
Staying highly caffeinated and just hanging out in the parts of Paris you normally don't see, then yeah, check out my channel.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. It's been great.